Well, good morning, my friend, and welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. It's good to have you with me on this Wednesday morning. And I'm going to be another beautiful day here in the Oklahoma City area and excited about what God's going to do. And of course, we got church tonight. We continue our series on the end times, and you don't want to miss tonight's. Tonight, I think, will kind of show those who are in our church why we are Baptists, why we are who we are, what the judgment is against others. I think it's important that we see this because the Bible is very clear on certain things. And I think oftentimes we just kind of glaze over it in this ecumenical world that we live in. And you're going to want to be here tonight. So you be here at 7 o'clock. And of course, then tonight also, church, our science fair will be tonight after the service for our Christian school. And you're going to want to come and see all the work that the young people have done. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of that myself, looking forward to seeing what God's going to do. And so you make sure you're in your place, and let's see what God can't do here in our church tonight. And hopefully, maybe God will bring someone in that needs to get saved, and I'm looking forward to that as well. Well, I want to talk to you from Philippians chapter 1 and verse 5. The scripture says, "For your fellowship in the gospel from the first day until now." Now, I want you to notice the gospel of Christ is the answer for the world. Any other solution to the world's problems always ends in failure. Paul understood that the only thing that really mattered was the spreading of the gospel. The gospel is what gave Paul a drive to continue despite the adversities that were that he faced, and that came because of his desire to get the gospel out. Now, Paul was a zealous man. There's no question about that. But he was zealous for the enemies of the gospel before he got saved. But then he became even more zealous after he got saved for the cause of Christ. Now, his zealousness allows us to have much of the New Testament today because of what God did through him. Now, many of today's believers have gotten their focus wrong. Sadly, we see believers more focused on politics and community projects when the gospel is truly the answer for all of the problems that we face in today's world. Now, you will never turn a nation around or a world around through politics. I think too many of us get excited about a certain politician when we ought to get excited about the gospel. You see, the desire to win a city over to Christ through community involvement only causes believers to compromise what they believe for the sake of getting the gospel to the lost. They'll compromise it. We want them to like us. That's never going to happen. Paul focused on the gospel. And that focus led to his drive to get the gospel to the lost, no matter what he faced. Now, I want to share several things the gospel produces in the life of a believer. First, the gospel produces great fellowship with fellow believers. Now, I want you to notice, there is fellowship in the gospel. The greatest fellowship one will enjoy will only be discovered by working with others as you try to spread the gospel. My friend, the greatest time of fellowship I have someone is going soul winning. You'll find real friends by spreading the gospel with others than you ever will in worldly entertainment. Some of you are looking for friendships. Well, why don't you go soul winning? And you're going to find friends who you can go soul winning with. You get to talk with each other. You get to serve the Lord together. And there's great victory together. That's how great friendships are established. So I want you to understand the gospel produces fellowship. Second, the gospel gives purpose for suffering. Paul said that which happened unto him has fallen out rather unto the furtherance of the gospel. So the trials we face always help us to identify with others so that we can win them to Jesus Christ. Every trial you've had in your life is a tool you can use to identify with somebody so that they'll get saved. When you realize that every trial is simply for the furtherance of the gospel, that's when you find purpose for your suffering. You realize this is not wasted time. Third, the gospel gives boldness to others. Paul said that others became bold because they saw his witness for Christ in his bonds and suffering. So nothing motivates others to do more like seeing someone have the courage to fight for right despite the suffering or the battles that they face. The greatest motivating stories you'll read in life are motivating because someone continued while suffering. Their suffering produced a drive and boldness in you to do more for Christ because you saw what they went through. When the gospel is your focus, you'll find that nothing will stop you from getting it out, which will stir others to be bold for Christ. Fourth, the gospel gives it gives a drive in the battles. Paul realized that Christ was still being preached, even though the enemy told his story with a desire. Told his story with the desire to destroy him. You see, you're going to face battles if you spread the gospel. I hate to tell people this. People say, "Well, we don't have to. We don't have to be. We don't have to be mean." I got news for you. The world's going to think we're mean no matter what. I can knock on a door, tell someone how to get saved, and they'll still call our church. Just listen. Okay, it's probably at least once a week, if not more, if not once every other week. We get a call from someone upset because someone knocked on the door. What was the only reason why we knocked on the door? We want them to go to heaven. Now, what's so bad about that? Now, my friend, I don't care if you're the nicest person in all the world. You spread the gospel, people are going to get upset with the message because they don't like the message because they have a different father. You will find a great drive to fight the battles for truth because those battles are the tool God uses to spread Christ's gospel. So you've got to understand it gives you a drive in the battles. Fifth, the gospel produces a great army of believers who strive together for the gospel. The greatest way to get unity among the brethren is this. Don't compromise. Don't worry about, well, we got to surround ourselves around a college. Why don't we get focused on the gospel being spread? And that's what we can unite about. When a church stays focused on spreading the gospel, the result is a unified church. The more my church gets involved in soul winning, the more unified we become on the focus of the souls being saved. My friend, how we need people in this old world to get focused on this thing of giving the gospel out. This is what's sad. One of the most unpopular things to preach on anymore is soul winning. You know why? Too many believers are lazy. And you say, well, I don't think you ought to call them that. That's what they are. They're either lazy or they're selfish. Because if you don't want to give the gospel to somebody because it's going to mess with your life, that's selfish and that's a backslidden mind. If you say, I just don't really want to go, I'm tired, then you're lazy. My friend, the gospel needs to get out. There's people dying and going to hell. And somewhere we have got to get this focus on the gospel of Christ. It ought to drive you to say, I want to do something great for God. Oh, how we need that today. I want to challenge you. Go tell somebody how to be saved. Get a drive let the gospel be your focus. Let it be your drive. Let it be that thing which motivates and stirs you to do something for God. And you'll find this. If the gospel is your focus, you'll always have a drive. You'll always have a fire. You'll always have an enthusiasm to do something for God because the gospel is always needed every day for our entire life until Jesus comes. Get focused on the gospel. Get focused on spreading it to the lost. And you'll find you can keep a fire burning inside your soul that will help you to reach the lost for Jesus Christ. Well, I hope this is a great help to you today. Now, let's remember today, be good to everyone. Everyone's having a tough time. Have a great day, my friend.